My sister got pregnant by my husband while living with us and now wants me to leave so they can be a family. However, she feels cheated because my husband doesn't own anything. I'm 34 years old, and a couple of months ago, I let my sister Yuli, 28, move in with me because she was in a terrible financial situation. Yuli had lost her job when her company shut down, and 2 weeks later, she fell seriously ill with West Nile virus. After discussing it with my parents, I decided she could move in with me for a few weeks so I could take care of her, monitor her recovery, and help her save on rent since it was clear she wouldn't be able to work again soon. She was at rock bottom, and I was the one who stepped up to help her because our parents live far away and she doesn't have many friends in a position to support her. I believed it was the right thing to do, helping family or a friend in need. But how did she repay me? By having an affair with my husband. On top of that, she had the nerve to tell me that I should move out so they could start their happy family because she's now pregnant. This all came to light a few days ago. Yuli asked my husband and me to sit down because she had something important to tell us. I thought she was finally going to move out, as she'd been recovering well in recent weeks. I assumed she was going to announce that she was ready to get back to work and out of our lives. Instead, she dropped the bomb that she and my husband had been having an affair for the past few weeks, and now she was pregnant. When I looked at my husband, I could see he was as shocked as I was. Clearly, Yuli hadn't discussed this with him before telling me. That explained a lot. After revealing she was pregnant with my husband's baby, she added that she understood this might be a shock for me and was very sorry for what happened. But she said, "What's done is done, and the past can't be changed." She then had the audacity to ask me to leave the house because she would feel uncomfortable being around me in her current condition. I was furious, but I stayed calm. I told her quietly that I wasn't going anywhere because the house was mine. If anyone needed to leave, it would be her, and she could take my cheating husband with her. They could create their happy family wherever they wanted because I would be filing for divorce and I didn't want to see either of them again. I spoke as calmly as I could, controlling my anger, and handled the situation with as much dignity as possible. They had already blindsided me, so I wasn't going to let them see me lose control. After I told her this was my property and I wasn't leaving, she seemed to think I was joking. But then my husband stepped in and confirmed that I wasn't kidding. He explained that he didn't own anything, which seemed to be news to Yuli. Apparently, he had lied to her about everything. For context, my husband and I have been together for 8 years and married for the last 5. A couple of months after we got married, I took a risk and started my own business. Thankfully, it did very well, so my husband and I decided he could stay home and pursue writing full-time, a hobby he always loved. For the past 4 years, he's been working on his great novel while managing the housework. We don't have kids, so there wasn't much to do. The house and everything in it belonged to me because I bought them, and we both agreed it made sense for me to own everything. I'm betting he regrets that now. When my husband admitted to Yuli that he didn't actually own anything and had lied, she lost it. She started yelling at him, calling him a fraud and a liar, and claimed she'd been tricked. It was satisfying to see her lose her cool with him, but I didn't care about their drama at that moment. I just wanted them out of my house. I had to intervene and tell them to stop yelling at each other because I wanted them gone immediately. I wasn't giving them time to pack leisurely. I just wanted them out of my sight. My husband, to his credit, realized there was no way he could talk his way out of this. He knew how much I value my self-respect and dignity, and he knew I'd never forgive an infidelity. So he quietly went to our bedroom and started packing. Yuli, on the other hand, got on her knees and started begging me for forgiveness. She said she'd do anything to fix this, but she needed a place to stay and couldn't be thrown out, especially since she was pregnant with my nephew. The mention of family enraged me. I grabbed her by the arm, pulled her to her feet, and pushed her out the door. I was rough, but I didn't care. I was furious. The fact that she dared to call us family after sleeping with my husband infuriated me. She kept crying and begging on the porch, but I slammed the door. Then I went to the guest room, packed all her things messily into her suitcases, and threw them outside. I told her to leave or I'd call the police. She kept crying, but I just shut the door and went back inside. A few minutes later, my husband came out with his bags, apologizing profusely. I pretended not to hear him. Yuli cried and begged on the porch for about an hour after he left, but I put on headphones and ignored her. Eventually, I noticed the silence and realized she had finally left. That night, I called my lawyer, told him everything, and said I wanted to file for divorce. I planned to tell my family and friends later, but the next day I got a call from my parents. They said what I'd done was horrible. According to them, I had been cruel and insensitive to Yuli, who had been going through so much lately. I found this strange because my parents have always treated us equally. It's not like Yuli was their favorite. But when they started defending her, it didn't sit well with me. They told me they knew she was pregnant and that I couldn't kick her out of the house in that state, especially knowing she was between jobs and recovering from a serious illness. They said it would take her time to get back on her feet, and besides, she had no one else around who could care for her as well as I could. Her friends were dealing with their own financial struggles, jobs, and families, so they couldn't take care of her. My parents argued that, as her sister, the least I could do was forgive her stupidity and be there for her. On top of that, they reminded me it was my husband who seduced her, not the other way around. They said he had told her he was the one managing our finances and was a successful writer of novels and movie scripts. Supposedly, he didn't want the fame, so he stayed anonymous. My sister, being naive, believed all of it and thought he was someone important. That's why she fell for his lies. But then it got worse. She admitted she'd been having an affair with him and thought they could force me out of the house together. Unfortunately for them, their plan backfired, especially since they hadn't even coordinated their stories. When she confessed everything, she ruined it for both of them. So, I stood my ground. I asked, "What sister?" "I don't have a sister." Then I argued that I had every right to kick her out because she decided to betray me with my husband. It didn't matter if he played a part too. They both equally chose to stab me in the back. There was no sense in kicking him out and letting her stay, as if nothing happened. I didn't care that she was pregnant or unemployed. I had already considered those things before letting her stay with me for months. And how did she repay me? By having an affair with my husband under my roof. Besides, it's not like she was heavily pregnant and unable to manage on her own. She was only a few weeks along. Even if she were 9 months pregnant, I still would have kicked her out because what she did was disgusting. She was ready to throw me out when she thought the house belonged to my husband, so I see it as poetic justice. But my parents kept insisting I was too harsh. They focused on how I'd handled the situation rather than what she had done. I got tired of hearing the same arguments, so I hung up on them. Since then, we haven't spoken. Do you think I was wrong to kick my pregnant sister out of my house? Update 1. I understand some people think kicking a pregnant woman out of my house is horrible, but keeping her under my roof after what she did would have been insane. Luckily, most people agree I was justified and believe she should find somewhere else to stay. Yesterday, I blocked my parents. This situation has taken a huge emotional toll on me, but I can't stop working. I'm the boss, so I have to put on a strong face and handle everything. At work, it's business as usual, but when I get home, I completely break down. The emotional pain is unbearable. A few days ago, my lawyer and I filed for divorce. My husband will be served soon, and I don't think he'll contest it. He knows me well enough to realize I won't let him off the hook if he tries. But even though I'm confident about my decision, it still hurts. Winning the divorce won't magically make everything better. I can't believe that after 8 years together, he would betray me with my sister. I genuinely thought we were in love, that we'd grow old together. Now, I'm questioning everything we've ever had. Maybe this wasn't his first affair. Maybe it's just the first time he got caught. The thought of that breaks my heart. But there's nothing I can do now except accept it and try to move on. He's the only one who hasn't tried to contact me since I kicked him out. My parents and Yuli have, but only to convince me to let her stay again for free. It's insane that my parents are taking her side. In my original post, I mentioned how my parents always treated Yuli and me equally. Now I'm not so sure. I never had high expectations of Yuli. We weren't best friends, but we didn't have a bad relationship either. That's why I agreed to help her and let her stay. We had a spare room, and I thought, why not? My parents encouraged it too, and I believe that's just what families do. But I never expected her to betray me like this. It hurts when someone you've been helping for months stabs you in the back. With my parents, it's even harder to accept. They've always been reasonable and fair, so I expected them to be upset with Yuli. To be fair, they were. From our conversations, it was clear they didn't approve of her actions, but they kept insisting the damage was done, and now we needed to move on. I don't know what's gotten into them, but I'm deeply disappointed. I feel like I've lost all the respect I once had for them, and I'm not sure if it can ever be restored. Emotionally, I'm drained. Mentally, I'm just focused on work, because my personal life has completely fallen apart. I haven't even told my friends about what's happening, though I know I'll have to eventually. My husband and I share many mutual friends, and I'd rather they hear the truth from me than whatever he might say. At this point, I don't know what to expect from anyone anymore. Right now, I'm prioritizing 2 things: ensuring my work doesn't suffer and handling the divorce. I'm fairly confident my husband won't contest it. I've been fair with the terms, but there's always a chance of the unexpected. So, I'm preparing all the necessary documentation, just in case. Beyond that, I'm trying to keep my mind as clear as possible. The last thing I need is to spiral out of control. Sharing my feelings here has been incredibly helpful. I truly appreciate everyone who's reached out, commented, and offered support. It means more to me than you can imagine. Update 2. As I expected, my husband didn't contest the divorce. He texted me to say the terms were fair. In another message, he admitted he had been thinking of ways to apologize to me, but couldn't come up with anything that didn't sound weak or insincere. So he decided to just say it. He's sorry. He explained that he lied to Yuli to impress her because he'd been feeling inadequate. Not owning anything, relying on me financially, and not even having children left him feeling like he lacked purpose. His novel wasn't progressing, and he felt like he'd wasted 4 years on something going nowhere. That frustration turned into depression, but he couldn't admit it to himself, let alone talk to me about it. Then Yuli came along. Without thinking about how depraved it was, he started lying to her to boost his ego. He claimed to be in control of our finances and successful in his career. Eventually, it led to them sleeping together. He thought it would be a one-time mistake, but it spiraled out of control. Even though he felt guilty, he couldn't stop. It became his way of escaping everything that was wrong in his life. When Yuli got pregnant and our confrontation happened, everything fell apart. He told me he deeply regretted everything. He admitted he ruined what we had, but swore this was the first and only time he cheated. He begged me to believe him and hoped that someday I might forgive him. After reading that message, I cried. It was yet another reminder of everything I had lost. I thought I knew this man, thought we had a solid relationship built on love. But in a single day, it all came crashing down. Losing that trust is devastating, and I know anyone who's been through a divorce or betrayal understands exactly how I feel. Part of me wanted to hate him, to focus on all the terrible things he's done. But in the end, it still hurts. I hated myself for crying over his message, but after I finished, I gathered the strength to block him. I didn't reply. He didn't deserve a response, not now when everything is so raw. After a while, I started feeling even angrier about what he had said. All he had to do was talk to me. I never, not once, made him feel bad for choosing to stay home and work on his novel. I'm not a particularly creative person. I've never been into writing or anything like that. Except now, I guess, since I need to get all this off my chest. But I respected his creative side. I didn't see anything wrong with him staying home. Maybe his fragile male ego couldn't handle it. Maybe other people made comments and he just got bitter. But after 8 years together, the least he could have done was tell me what was going on. We got married to support each other, and I would have been there for him. Maybe we could have worked it out together. But he chose not to. He leaned on Yuli instead, and that's how we ended up in this mess. The more I think about it, the more disgusting and pathetic it seems. He lied about so many things to make himself seem bigger and better. It's pathetic. I loved him as he was. But that wasn't enough for him. This will never make sense to me. At least with Yuli, I understand her motive. She wanted my life without putting in any effort. She thought she could do that by getting pregnant and moving in with my so-called rich husband. But now I can just choose to ignore her existence. In a few months, I'll be done with the divorce, and then I'll never have to see or think about him again. Update 3. It's been a couple of days since my last update, and I'd had a few peaceful days. But this morning, my parents showed up at my house. It was odd because, ever since they moved to my dad's hometown to manage the family business with my uncle, they rarely visit. Usually, it was Yuli and me who had to go see them. The fact that they took a flight to see me meant something big. But I knew they were only here to talk about Yuli. So, when I opened the door, I told them outright. If they were here to talk about her, I didn't want to hear it. There's only one Sunday a week, and I wasn't about to waste mine rehashing the same topic. I'd already said everything I needed to say, and they had too. There was nothing left to discuss about this situation. I made it clear they could only come in if they apologized to me first. They had two choices: apologize or leave. I set my boundaries very clearly, but my parents insisted they came specifically to talk about Yuli. They said we needed to address this because the way I was treating her, and them, wasn't right. To them, we were family, and families handle things differently. Once again, they started with the family angle, and just like with Yuli, I lost my patience. This is not how families treat each other, at least, not in the kind of family I'd want to have. I'll give them this. In this family, we do handle things differently. My sister sleeps with my husband, and I kick her out of my house. That's certainly different from most families. I laid it all out for them. They tried to stammer and come up with arguments, but I didn't let them. I steamrolled through everything they could have said. By the time I was done, my mom was in tears. But they were on my turf, and I could talk to them however I wanted, especially since they decided to bother me this morning. This whole conversation should have been directed at Yuli, the one who actually did something wrong, not me. After I finished yelling, my mom was crying so hard that my dad told me he never wanted to speak to me again. He said I was a horrible daughter for making my own mother cry, the woman who gave me life, but I don't care. They can think I'm crazy if they want. I know I'm not, and that's enough for me. If anyone's crazy, it's them, or my sister, and honestly, maybe all three of them. Update 4. It's been a month since my last update. I haven't been in contact with anyone in my family, Yuli included, and definitely not my parents. All I know is that they've been sending her money. As for my soon-to-be ex-husband, I've heard from a few people that he's now living with his parents. Once the divorce is finalized, he plans to move to another state. Before you ask, I have no idea what he plans to do about his child. At this point, most of our friends know exactly what happened, and the majority have started cutting him out of their lives. A few are trying to stay neutral, avoiding getting involved. As for me, my life is slowly but surely getting back on track. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my peace now. I'm not exactly happy yet, but at least I'm calm, which is a big improvement from last month. Little by little, I know I'll be happy again. After all, bad things always come to an end eventually. Update 5. This update is pretty recent because some developments have come up that you might want to know about. My sister lost the baby and has been blaming me for it. According to her, the stress I caused made her miscarry. My parents are also on this crusade with her. The silver lining is that they're not bothering me directly. This is all coming from neutral people who claim they're not taking sides, but somehow manage to accuse me of killing a baby out of pride. It's funny though. None of these people have taken my sister into their homes, so by their logic, they're just as guilty as I am. If my sister cared about her pregnancy, she shouldn't have slept with someone else's husband, especially her sister's, or at least used protection. Nothing about this situation is normal. But when the accusations come from people this irrational, it's not worth my time or energy. Update 6. My ex-husband contacted me a few hours ago, and you won't believe what he had to say. No, he didn't ask me to come back. We haven't ended on horrible terms, relatively speaking, which is why I even responded. He admitted he was wrong and, to his credit, has made the divorce process easy. I don't hold grudges against him, not because he deserves it, but because I don't want to waste my time on anger or thoughts about him. No cheater is worth that. What he told me, however, was very interesting. He confirmed that my sister was never pregnant. He called to let me know because he'd heard about all the things being said about me and wanted me to know the truth. He also told those people the same thing. Apparently, he'd been asking her for proof of the pregnancy and even offered to go with her to a doctor's appointment several times. She always avoided it. Eventually, she announced she'd lost the baby. When he asked for evidence, she had none. He talked to my parents, and they didn't have any proof either. There's no record of her being pregnant or losing the baby. One day, she simply decided to tell everyone she'd had a miscarriage, and that was it. So now, all the accusations against me for making her lose the baby mean absolutely nothing. My parents have tried to contact me to reconcile, and they've even stopped supporting her financially now that they know they won't be grandparents, but honestly, it's too little too late. I don't care what they do with my sister now. What I needed was their support when I was betrayed, support that any decent parent would give a child in my position. So it's a no for them too. In the end, my sister lost a sibling, a home, and my help because she chose to sleep with my husband and fake a pregnancy. My parents lost a daughter because they prioritized a lie over the truth. I think the three of them should head to Vegas and try their luck there. Maybe gambling will work out better for them than